Hi, my name is Larry Welborn. I'm legal affairs reporter for the Orange County Register. I've been covering, editing, or observing the Orange County court scene since 1974. The Register has been chronicling the 50 most notorious cases in Orange County history since the county's inception in 1889. We're going to discuss those cases today to see if we could come up with the most notorious case ever. We appreciate having here Assistant District Attorney David Brent, the head of the homicide panel for the Orange County District Attorney's Office, who's tried more than 50 murder cases, and you've been able to prosecute 6 defendants who are now on death row, right?
Yes, Larry, and thank you. It's great to be here.
And Assistant Public Defender Denise Gregg, who's head of the homicide unit for the Public Defender's Office, and you've tried dozens of murder cases, and you're an outspoken opponent of the death penalty, right?
Right. Thanks, Larry. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. What we're going to do is you're going to talk about the 3 cases out of the 52 cases we've been on our blog, and tell me why you think they're the most notorious cases. Sure. Dave, why don't you start first?
Larry, one of my 3 cases involved the defendant Alejandra Avila, who was convicted and sentenced to death for the killing of 5-year-old Samantha Runyon. And of course that case was probably the high point of Sheriff Corona's career, which was sort of ironic. But that involved the kidnapping of Samantha Runyon and the sexual assault and leaving her up on a tall mountain up off Ortega Highway. For me, it was a case that involved just a very vulnerable and innocent child. And one part that was interesting of that case was, I'll show this, the composite drawing that was drawn right after the kidnap from a description of Samantha's little 5-year-old friend. And from this, a former girlfriend in Riverside County actually identified off that composite that she knew who that was, and without that identification, the case either would not have been solved or would have been solved much later.
And that picture shows incredible detail by a 5-year-old playmate of Samantha Runyon.
It did. It really was. It's fascinating to me that that she was able to help have it completed or drawn, and that B, a random woman was able to say, I know who that is, and to identify her. My second case involved the biggest spree killer in Orange County, and that was Edward Charles Alloway, who had been sort of a disgruntled worker back in Michigan before moving out to California, and had gotten in fights with co-workers previously. And when he came to California, worked at Cal State Fullerton as a custodian, and on one particular day decided just to go into the library and open fire, and he killed 7 people and wounded 2 with a .22 rifle, of all things. People always think it must have been a high-powered rifle, but it was a .22 rifle, and that was the biggest spree killer. A spree killer is different from a serial killer in that all the murders take place at once.
What was the outcome of that case?
He was actually found guilty, but the jury hung on the issue of sanity, and the case was later determined by a judge that he was not guilty by reason of insanity. And that's another reason I picked that case, because that case is still in the legal system. Every few years, Mr. Alloway petitions to be released and to claim that his sanity was restored and to get out, and so those fights continue. The number 1 case I picked, or another case, I guess I'm tipping my hand, was the Randy Kraft case. And Kraft was the most prolific serial killer that we know of in Orange County history. Kraft actually kept a list, a murder list, and I have a copy of that. And from this, it was determined that he killed at least 65 people. There's 61 entries on this list, but 4 of them were determined to be double killings, and I won't go into why that was thought, but at any rate, that's the list that he kept. Kraft followed another killer of young men named William Bonin, and the difference, and at the time that Kraft started killing, Bonin was in custody, and it really perplexed people. How could obviously Bonin be killing if Kraft was? But they were different in the sense that Bonin would stop and throw the bodies out of the car, and Kraft would throw them out while he was moving. And he tortured and sexually violated many, many young men in the early 80s, and is on death row appealing his conviction. And so I view that case as probably the most horrific, saddest, and notorious case that we have.
And some say that Randy Kraft did not get the notoriety that he deserved because he didn't win the nickname, the Freeway Killer.
That's right, he didn't. Bonin had already taken that name, and I think they called him the Freeway Strangler, and it didn't just quite have the same ring to it anymore.
It didn't take off in the media.
No, it didn't.
Denise, and you look at these 2, and what 3 cases did you come up with?
Well, I have 3 different cases.